Hey everybody, and welcome to This Woman Can. I am your host, Janice Sutherland, career strategist for the Black woman over 40. And I don't know if you're going to pick it up, but you should pick it up. Is how delighted I am, should I say, to have my guest this week, Joya Cousin, because we used to work together, a good few years ago. And I have been watching her journey, how she has reinvented herself, pivoted, found her love affair, both figuratively and in career, as she's made that change. So let me tell you a little bit about Joya. Joya Cousin is a self-taught artist born on the Caribbean island of Antigua. There's the connection. And having graduated with a degree in computer science and accounting, she then successfully pursued a designation as a certified public accountant. For almost 2 decades, working throughout the Caribbean, she built a dynamic and award-winning career, first in public accounting, and then as a CFO and CEO in the hospitality and telecommunications sectors. In 2015, Joya's life changed when she met and fell in love with the man who would become her husband. And after leaving her career and loved ones behind to start a new life in France, she quickly discovered a love for painting and began creating portraits in a very vivid yet realistic style. And shunning the stereotype of the starving artist, Joya has now turned her passion into a thriving business. More than 70 of her original paintings and commission pieces can be found in private collections in France, Spain, Russia, Ireland, the UK, and across the US, Canada, and the Caribbean. Joya's portraits are love stories on canvas, capturing the beauty that unites us all. So I told you it was just a wonderful, wonderful story. And you can see some of Joya's work in the background. So Joya, welcome to This Woman Can, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Janice. It's such a pleasure to be here. You invited me probably 2.5 years ago, and at that time I was just frenzied with, just being so busy. I think I was putting on my first solo show, but I'm so pleased to be here finally.
Excellent. And I'm so happy to have you because I want to hear all about it. So tell us about your journey and where you got to where you are today, how you got to where you are today.
Well, you had a little bit of a snapshot. So I took the circuitous route to becoming an artist. People ask me if I ever dreamed of it, or if I ever knew that there was talent. I think, as children, we all, draw and paint a little bit, we sketch, and we enjoy that. We have something artistic there. And I think I did too. I remember entering a Liat competition back in the day, and I think I placed second. They had a sailing week competition every year, and that was like a highlight for me because I remember that it was important. But once I hit high school, we didn't have art on the program, and Caribbean parents are sort of very focused on academics, so it wasn't even a question for me. It just sort of faded by the wayside, and I never really thought about it again until I hit A-levels. And once I got to A-levels, I was doing the science stream. So I was doing a heavy course load. It was physics, chemistry, math, biology, and general paper. And in the second year, I decided to drop chemistry. I just wasn't, with it, and decided to take up art. So that was a pretty bold move to decide, after never having any formal training in art, to decide to go into A-level art. So I had like 6 weeks or something like that, maybe 12, to prepare a portfolio, which should have been done over the course of 2 years. So this was like my first time ever painting, my first time ever using pastels and just experimenting. And I loved it. I really, really did. It was a lot of work, especially with my course load. But in the end, I ended up with a C. And I felt like, okay, there you go. You have your answer now. You're not meant to be an artist, forget about this art stuff. And so I put that in the background completely and continued along my merry way. I studied computer science and accounting, and then went into accounting. And, every now and then I would sort of buy art supplies and, wander around art stores. That was one of my favorite things to do, but I never created anything. I didn't do one single painting for 25 years. There was nothing. There wasn't a dream, there wasn't a wish. it didn't even exist as a seed, at least not in my conscious mind, maybe in my subconscious mind. I always thought that if I ended up in jail, sort of probably watching too much Shawshank Redemption, I would write. I thought if I ever had too much time on my hands, I would write, because I've been a big journaler all my life. But here you have it. I've met my wonderful husband. We fall in love. We're married. I'm now in this country. I don't speak French.
Right.
And so forget about it. French culture is linked very intimately to their language. Their language is their culture. The two can never be torn apart. So there's no way I would even attempt to sort of pick up my career again in France, not being absolutely fluent. So it wasn't even a thought for me.
Yeah.
So I'm at home sort of teaching myself, and I saw somebody take up a project for 100 days of art. And I thought, oh, why not? Just do a little doodle every day for 100 days. And that's exactly what I started doing. My first thing was literally a flower with one of my favorite quotations on it. And the next day was something similar, just colored pencils on a scrap of paper. Until one day I doodled with colored pencils a picture of a woman. And honestly, that it just felt like the planet just shifted a little bit on its axis for me. I don't know what it was. I don't know how to explain it, but I just felt something sort of pulling at my soul in that moment. And so the next day I did something similar, and I talked to my husband about it, and he's so sweet. He was like, if you're interested in this, just go for it. You want to go to the art store and buy some supplies? I'm like, well, I'm not really sure. I will experiment a little bit, and so that's what I did. Until I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to go buy like the cheapest set of acrylics I can find. And that's what I did. I painted my first portrait, and I said, you know what? I am seriously interested in this. This is what I'm going to do. So forget the 100 days of art project. I want to learn how to paint portraits. I'm seriously interested enough to commit myself to doing that. And so that's how it started.
Wow.
About 5 years ago.
What a story. What a story. So, and you've gone on from strength to, like I said, looking at your work and seeing what you do, it's a natural talent, there seems to be a natural talent. But what did you have any fear about making it? Because, you've spent your life in the corporate world, and we met in the corporate world. This is the arts, the creativity, maybe I'm thinking the flamboyancy and the insecurity, because you don't know your commissions are going to come and stuff like that. Did you have any fears about, embarking on this particular journey?
Absolutely, of course. I mean, I would say that my biggest fear was that I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to commit to it and do it for the long term. That was my biggest fear. I realized that my identity, my ego, my self-confidence, my sense of well-being was very much tied to my work.
Yeah.
And even now, it's still a little bit difficult for me, to be completely honest. I remember taking a test years and years ago about whether you're right-brained or left-brained, and I'm what they call hemispherically balanced. So, I've done the sciences. I was a physics major. I was actually majoring in physics and computer science, and then switched to accounting and computer science. And now I'm an artist. So there's that potential to do a lot of stuff. But at the same time, art is a very sort of solitary road.
Yeah.
And there isn't that feedback that you're getting from somebody all the time. You need to be very, very strong and secure in what you're doing. You have to have that confidence and belief in yourself.
Right.
If you go I tell artists this all the time, you cannot go searching or depending on external validation. There's never going to be enough of that to get you going, or to keep the motor going, or to get you painting every day. So you have to have that inside of you. There has to be that love for it. And so that's what's pushed me along. I sort of did a lot of different experiments with myself. I tracked my hours of painting. I painted every single day, because before, jumping up and saying, okay, I'm going to become a career artist, I had to figure out for myself, can you get up and paint every single day and love it?
Yeah.
So I didn't make the decision. It was at the beginning of 2019. I told my husband, okay, I'm going to do a little experiment. I'm going to paint every day. I'm going to see how I do, if I'm comfortable with doing it every single day. And at the end of 2019, I'm going to make the decision about whether I'm going to do this professionally, if I'm going to jump in and put my shingle up and whatnot. But by May, that decision was already made. I had been painting consistently and I'm like, okay, I love it. I'm ready to go ahead. I'm ready to be scared. I'm ready to push myself out into the world and see, what's there. And so, yes, I've had fears and there are still fears. I don't sell my work in France. So I depend on the internet, basically, which is tough, especially now because there are, the internet is getting split up geographically. So if you're in Europe, you're not sort of as connected as we used to be with the US. There are lots of websites, news sites that don't even offer anything to Europe anymore. Europe is a lot stricter with cookies and so forth. And so there's definitely that curtain has been drawn. So the fear is always going to be there. But I think fear is something that we can use to our advantage. If I think if you don't have fear, then maybe you don't want it badly enough. If it's not intimidating you, then maybe it's not even worthy of pursuing.
So something just came to my mind when you were just talking then. So would you describe what you do as a job, a career, or a passion?
It's all three for me. Okay. It's all three for me because I take, my clients are always, I'm very sort of deadline focused. Every single client gets a deadline. They know when the painting is going to be finished. And people are often surprised by that. And I know a lot of other artists don't treat it like that. They don't sort of get up every morning and paint. I get up every morning and paint like it's a job. But it's also a career. So I'm constantly looking for how I need to develop. Looking for ways to grow, looking for what's the next stage. I'm like at the stage right now where I love painting for clients, but I feel like maybe I need to develop more in my own style right now. So I'm thinking of ways to try and fit that in. And of course, it's a passion. I do this because I love it. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't absolutely love it. So it's absolutely all three for me. And I think I'm really, really blessed to have that.
Excellent. That's a great answer. That's a great answer. And you're definitely blessed to have all three together. So Joya, what would you say is unique about pivoting mid-career, midlife? This is the time where we, some people is kind of settling into their job, thinking, I've got to stick to this because, to retirement and stuff. But some of us have said, we're leaving that corporate piece. We're going to forge our own path. So what do you think is unique about taking that step?
Well, first of all, it's tough no matter who you are. Because over the years, we build up a foundation. We know how to do things. But most of all, I think we build our own confidence. It's our own level of comfort in doing what we're known for, and what we know very well how to do. Pivoting often involves some sort of starting from scratch, even if it's very similar to what you've done before, or like me, it's completely different. And the thing is, though, you have to know that everything that you've experienced before, you're still going to take with you in some way or form. The confidence that you have is within you. It may not be linked to a specific skill set, but you know how to learn. You know how to learn how to do things. You know how to learn how to reach out to people. And so we have to be confident in our abilities to learn and to grow, to do something differently. It's tough also because as we get older, the energy level changes, We don't necessarily have the kind of fire that we used to. I have worked extremely hard during my career, and now I'm noticing, probably last year, I started noticing a difference in my energy level. The all-nighters aren't cutting it the way they used to. And so if you're going to be an entrepreneur or you're going to launch your own business, you need to be prepared for that. But I think that with age comes wisdom, and there are techniques that we can take along with us. It's not necessarily just brute force anymore. There are little techniques and little quirks that we can work into the way that we're doing things to make up for the fact that we're not as young as we used to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that employers need to take into consideration as well. Like I totally have never had, even when I was younger, I had no problem sort of hiring more mature people to work with me, because even though they may not see the world as energetically as I do, as a sort of go-getter, they have experience. They have that strength of knowing how to do things. They've done a lot before. They've seen a lot before. They bring their contacts and their connections. And that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's a huge, huge plus. And so, yes, it's unique. It's intimidating. It's challenging. But for me, it's totally been worth it. You know, I think we discredit ourselves too much. We bring so much to the table.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. But so Joy, but what do you wish you had known when you embarked on this particular this step in your career?
Oh, wow. I feel like I'm constantly learning new things. What do I wish I had known most? I think I was a little bit naive about what the art world can be like.
Right.
And I'm not a person who likes to dwell on negatives, but there are a lot of gatekeepers in the art world. And I think there always have been and probably will be for a long time to come. I think it's completely unnecessary because I'm a person who believes that, you know, the whole world is out there and there's space for everybody. And I feel that way about arts and artists. But I think I spent too much time in the beginning trying to make connections, trying to find mentors, trying to find friends, trying to find a community, in order to get that validation. You know, I think in the whole of 2018, I was trying to find validation instead of just doing what I needed to do. But I just didn't want to be in my corner by myself. But sometimes you just got to be in your corner by yourself. And you can reach out to people who maybe aren't in the same niche as you are. You know, I still depend on the contacts that I have from before, the friendships that I have before, the mentors that I have before, who are not necessarily in the art world. So I think that has been the biggest shock for me. It continues to shock me to this day, how sort of closed-minded a lot of artists are. They're afraid. There's so much competition and fear. There's really fear, I think. And to me, fear it's negative and it's limiting. There's no place for fear if there's truly love. So I think that has been sort of the biggest thing I wish I'd known going in.
Yeah. And I love that you love, you know, because I can just feel the fact you love what you're doing. You can see it's just oozing through the camera, absolutely oozing through the camera. So, but Joy, what regrets do you think you would have had if you didn't go for it, if you didn't follow this passion?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure that I don't really believe in regrets. I'm not a person who believes in regrets. I think that whatever road that you take, you have the opportunity to grow and learn something from it later on. I think though that I'm very happy to have done it at a younger age, but I feel that if I hadn't done it now, I would have found it eventually. Right. I think it would never have stayed away from me. And I kind of feel that whatever is meant for you, if you truly love yourself and you give yourself that space, it's going to come. If you keep an open heart, it's going to come to you, you know? And I feel that way about my husband as well. You know, I always sort of thought, okay, don't get married before 28 or 33. And then of course, 33 comes along and I'm starting to get nervous, you know, about what's going to happen. Where's my soulmate? You know, where's this knight in shining armor that I've been waiting for? But I'm glad that I waited. I'm glad that I didn't sort of say, okay, the clock is ticking and I need to do this now. I waited and exactly what I wanted came to me. And I think that happens a lot in life. If we remain open, if we keep that open heart, then the things that are meant for us will come. And there's no reason to regret. You know, I don't regret that I didn't continue painting from 18 until 40. There was a reason for that. I have absolutely no regrets about the path that I've taken. I think it's been a wonderful journey and I benefit from that every day. So, you know, let's go. Let's continue to go. No regrets.
Fantastic. So is there anything you think would have made your journey easier looking back?
I have been so blessed, honestly. As I said, I think not having enough confidence in my own abilities and in my ability to just go forward and make it work. I think that has been the only limiting factor, just my own lack of my own fear, my own sort of risk aversion, I think, has been the only thing that I think made it more difficult than it could have been. But it hasn't been difficult. It's required hard work and commitment, but I've been so extremely blessed. I really have no complaints.
Excellent. And throughout the process, what do you think has been one of your biggest challenges? How did you overcome, and what lessons did you learn from it?
Actually, my biggest challenge is happening right now, to be honest. Yeah, I'm going through my biggest challenge right now. So most of my clients come from LinkedIn.
Right.
Okay, so I have not really bothered too much with Instagram and Facebook. My initial clients came from Facebook, but I kind of stay away from Facebook because I don't want to be bombarding my friends and family with my work. Maybe that's not so good, but I feel like, okay, I'm on Facebook to say hi and keep in touch with people, not to be selling myself constantly. So LinkedIn is a professional network, and LinkedIn has been so good to me. And it kind of like around the time when we were supposed to be booking in September 2019, that's when I made the decision to do client work. It just sort of, after about 4 or 5 months of really working hard on LinkedIn, like the orders just started really pouring in. I was just booked for months. I mean, I did crazy amounts of work. And so I never put that kind of effort into LinkedIn again, because I realized that I was kind of risking burnout.
Right.
And so now we're 2.5 years later, the algorithm has changed, our reach has changed, visibility has changed significantly. And it's like, okay, what am I going to do? I've been looking at my social selling score, and it's tumbled like almost 20 points. And I'm like, okay, what I'm going to do? I still have clients, I still have bookings, but I'm just like, I'm a bit nervous about what's going to be happening in the future. Right. And so I am trying to balance the whole content creation thing with the time I spend in my studio doing my work.
Yeah.
And honestly, that side of things, it drains me. It takes away my energy. And I'm like, I just want to be painting. I want to paint more.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm trying to decide, I actually just said no to a client this week. Do I focus more just on the products that I want the most?
Right.
And also take the opportunity to build up my style and learn some new things? Or do I continue to plow along, getting as much work as I can? And I'm kind of leaning away from that right now. I'm like, you know what? I don't need to do this. I've made very wise decisions. I've had a lot of success. So I don't necessarily need to get growth at any cost, kind of thing, like I would do sort of if I was a marketing manager, because I kind of wear different hats. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe you need to take that hat off and just step back a little bit to make sure that you're working on your overall career and your overall sense of well-being for the long run. Because I see myself doing this when I'm 90 or 95. So I don't necessarily need to be running out there and sell all the time, So I think that's kind of, and it's a journey. So I'm still learning about that. And I think it's probably something that all entrepreneurs go through, just balancing the different hats. When to go forward, when to slow down, and to make sure that you're very much in touch with what you're doing, especially if you're creative, and making sure that you're remaining creative and still loving what you're doing while growing the business and taking care of the economic side of things. So that's an interesting journey that I'm on right now.
I can understand that, because it's very easy to kind of stick to the creative because that's the bit you love. And as much as we've both come from the corporate world, and as much as we know the corporate piece, it's like we've kind of been there, done that. It's not, what we stepped out to go back to doing, but we're going to have to do some of it to find that balance to keep on doing what we want to do. Yeah, the roundabout way, but you know what I mean.
Exactly.
You know what I mean. So, Joy, if you had to start from scratch, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently, if anything?
I wouldn't have waited. I wouldn't have, because I spent a lot of time, I was painting all the time, but there was a lot of time where I went smaller. I painted on paper because I just didn't have the confidence to just go all out.
Right.
You know, so I wouldn't have waited. I would have just jumped in, you know, not the baby steps. Sometimes there wasn't a lot of financial risk involved. It was just, you know, just why did I wait? Why was I going slowly?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we need to just, run, go with energy, get that momentum going. And for a while there along my journey, I kind of stumbled and I didn't go as fast as I should have. And so that's definitely something, starting all over, I would have run right into it from, day one, basically.
Right. And you've mentioned a couple of times having a confidence issues, confidence challenges. So, why do you think that was, and how do you overcome that?
You know what, I think that comes from perfectionism. I see myself as a recovering perfectionist. I mean, when you're sort of like, for example, in computer science, you're writing code, it has to be perfect. If your code isn't perfect, it's just not going to work. With accounting as well, everything needs to be down to the last cent. Then I was in auditing for 8 years. So I was trained to find the mistakes of others. Like, I am so good at that. And of course, I mean, once you get into sort of management, you stop, you have to put it aside, but it still kind of remains in you. And I think even as women, a lot of women, we set such high standards for ourselves. The standards we set for ourselves are much higher than those that anybody else ever sets.
It's true.
And and we need to let go of that, because the boys are not doing that, generally speaking. The boys who are out there being successful, the cowboys, the entrepreneurs, the CEOs, the whatever, they're not doing that. They're keeping their eyes on the prize and they're going forward because they have confidence in themselves. They know what they want and they go for it. And I think sometimes we want to be Miss Perfect and we think we need to achieve X and Y and Z or A, B, and C before we can do D.
Yeah.
We never think we can, and the guy will come along and you're like, I think I like the look of M. He hasn't hit A yet, but he's going straight for M. And why not? And I'm not saying you should skip all those steps, but you don't necessarily have to hit every single thing perfectly before you even begin to dare to look above that. And I think as women, sometimes we're our own worst enemies where that's concerned.
Very much.
And that was it for me. I was looking for validation. I wanted somebody to come down from above, our God, and tell me, you're good enough. There is no art God who's going to come down and tell you you're good enough. And no other artist is going to come and support you. They're on their own journeys, and that's just something I didn't know at the time. And I wish I'd kind of stepped out of a little bit faster. So the perfectionism, I think, is what it is.
Great answer. So what advice would you share with women embarking on their own mid-career transition?
Love yourself and embrace the journey. Love yourself. You have to know why you're doing what you're doing and keep the focus on that and kind of, pep yourself up. Like, I'm not saying, go out there and fool yourself, but you know what you've achieved throughout your life. You know what your strengths are. You know what your weaknesses are, but don't focus on those weaknesses. I always used to say, you need to manage your weaknesses. I was always very focused on managing my weaknesses, but I think that's not necessarily the best way to go. Work on your strengths. Walk in your strengths. And I think that if you're going to step out from a career that you've been in before, you know that there's something in you that's wanting to go forward in a certain path. There's something that's calling you, and you should listen to it. And you should have the confidence that you have the ability to do what's necessary to get there. So like, love that part of yourself. And I think love is, like unconditional favor. Like, you don't have to be good enough. Just love yourself and give yourself that unconditional favor to say, okay, you can do this. You will do this. You will figure it out. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fall down and stump your toe and scrape your knee, but you're going to get there because you have a reason to get there. You want to get there. So absolutely.
Fantastic. Love that answer. Absolutely love that answer. So Joya, we're coming down to our last few questions here, and it's been a great conversation. But what are the 3 things that you've learned about yourself during your career?
Oh my God. I was I learned so much about myself. I'm still learning about myself. I still often reflect on my career. Even though I'm an artist now, I reflect on the mistakes that I've made, which is like so typical, but I think it's good. I think it's good to be growth oriented and to be able to see what your weaknesses are and think about what you would have done differently. Like a book that had a huge impact on me was Susan Cain's book, Quiet, about introverts and what they bring to the table. And that was really groundbreaking for me, because I learned that even though I'm an extrovert, there's an introverted side to me. And it also gave me the confidence to know that it's okay. You don't have people around you every day as an artist, but you can be quiet and you can walk as an artist in that introverted side, even though it isn't necessarily what makes up most of you. And I just thought back to all the times when, you know, I was this go-getting person surrounded by all these other go-getting persons, and there's somebody at the table who's maybe a little bit quieter, and I just thought, oh my God, all those times that I could have worked a little bit harder to, you know, bring them forward, extract their wisdom, you know. So there were definitely some missed opportunities there. I think that's kind of the most important thing I've learned about myself, that there is that introverted side of me that I can tap into and that I can grow into in order to achieve success as an artist.
Right, fabulous, fabulous. So where would we find you typically on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m.?
Whatever I'm doing, I'm probably doing it with my husband. There are times when I kind of like, you know what, he loves the weekends and I love the weekends too, but I love to work on the weekend. So sometimes I kind of crawl out of bed extra early at like 4:30. I'll take a shower and I come into my studio. And, you know, when he gets up, he'll come get me. So quite often I'll be in my studio at 10 o'clock in the morning. But if not, I'll be with him, like having brunch or just spending time with him. So it's one of two places, either in my studio or with my hubby.
Yeah, both are your loves.
Yeah, exactly.
So Joya, what does success feel like to you?
To me, success feels like growth. You know, I love the word thriving. I love the word, for me, that means that you are, when I think of thriving, I think of a little baby who's healthy and exploring and excited about life and loved and cherished, but most of all has like all this opportunity, all this potential before them. So for me, success is having that continued opportunity to grow, to develop for more. You know, the opposite of that is basically being stuck. You know, it's being in a situation where there are no opportunities, where you don't feel like you're going anywhere. And that's okay for some people. But for me, I like that feeling of there's more. You're doing well, and there's more to come.
Excellent, excellent. So that was my last official question. So if people would like to know more about what you're doing, see your work, Joya, how can they do that?
Well, I'm on social media, Joya Cousin. So I'm at Joya Cousin pretty much everywhere, and joyacousin.com. And I'm mostly on LinkedIn. So I've kind of abandoned Facebook and Instagram for a while, but I'm there. I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok as well, Twitter. I have the followings everywhere. I put most, it's like, you know, I don't need that to be my second job, social media, but I do love connecting with other people. So yeah. Easy to find.
Excellent. So Joya, thank you so much for your time today. It's wonderful catching up with you and hearing about all your fabulous, passionate exploits. Thank you for joining us. This Woman Can.
Thanks for having me, Janice. It's been great.
Excellent.